What's up, you guys? Today's animated series review is about a group of crime-fighting, hockey-playing vigilantes who must stop an evil overlord from conquering the planet. And not to mention, it is also inspired by a successful Disney sports movie franchise and a real-life hockey team, and I'm talking about the Mighty Ducks. Mighty Ducks, the animated series, aired in 1996, consisting of only one season with a total of 26 episodes. The series begins with the backstory of how these unknown heist-preventing ducks came to planet Earth. In a different universe on an ice-filled planet called Puckworld, which is inhabited by humanoid ducks who have a passion for hockey, legend has it that a duck named Drake Duquesne once saved Puckworld from an invasion by a reptilian race called the Saurians. Although it's been over 100 years of peace, it was speculated that Drake's mask, which is filled with immense power, was the reason he became the planet's savior. As time went on, it seemed that 4 of the last remaining survivors of the Saurian race escaped the dimensional limbo, in which Drake had trapped them all in. With this, they vow to seek vengeance for their lost ancestors. Eventually, the Saurians and their armadas end up attacking and conquering Puckworld, enslaving the ducks, leaving their city in extreme chaos. However, a courageous duck that goes by the name Kennard Thunderbeak, who's part of the military resistance and someone who actually found Drake Duquesne's mask within the mountains of Twin Beaks, decided to save his best friend and his little brother. He ends up enlisting them to help with the rebellion by creating a special forces strike team with other members. By using the military's last arrowing, Kennard and his new recruits infiltrated the Saurian Empire headquarters. This allowed them to work as a team while understanding their strengths and weaknesses. So when they end up detonating the HQ and chase the Saurians through the dimensional limbo, Kennard tries to destroy the gateway generator, but unfortunately gets caught and sacrifices himself, promoting his best friend as the new leader of the team. With this devastating loss, the Ducks end up chasing the Saurians through the portal and end up landing on Earth in Anaheim, California, home of the Mighty Frogs. Upon arriving, they end up meeting a man named Phil Palmfeather. By luck, he ends up telling them he's in search for a new hockey team after his old team relocated. With the Saurians being somewhere within this vicinity and the Ducks desperately needing the urge to play hockey, they accepted Phil to be their manager. Thus, the Mighty Ducks are born. So within the Mighty Ducks you have Wildwing Flashblade, the leader of the Mighty Ducks, Nosedive Flashblade, the younger humoristic brother to Wildwing, Mallory McMillard, the flight, weapons, and combat specialist, Duke L'Orange, the notorious jewel thief with an eye patch who solely uses his sword in battle, Tanya Vanderflock, the expert in science and technology who basically is the best asset to the team with their Omnitool gadget. Without her, the Ducks would be useless, and Grin Hardwing, the strongest and most peaceful-minded member of the team. Then you have some other allies like Phil Palmfeather, the Ducks manager who always cares about money and begs the Ducks to partake in public events, Captain Cleghorn, the head of the police department who somewhat hates the Ducks, Thrash and Mookie, who are employees of Captain Comics, and some other randoms like Borg, the Prince of Anaheim, Buzz Blitzman, Brawn, and Dr. Huggerman. And within the Saurians you have Lord Dragaunus, leader of the Saurians, Siege, Dragaunus' second-in-command soldier, Chameleon, a shapeshifter who sometimes turns into celebrities with impressions, and Wrath, an old warlock. Then you have some other villains like Dr. Droid, Astaroth, Phineas P. Viper, Dr. Pretorius, Falcone, Lucretia Decoy, Dr. Swindell, Baron von Lickenstamp, Stanley Straczynski, and Mondo Man. So within the first 2 episodes, the Ducks are learning about Earth and how the humans play ruthless hockey while trying to be hockey players by day and heroes at night. With Wildwing as the new leader, he struggles to believe in himself after the loss of Kennard, as the mask itself contains many powers and responsibilities adding to the pressure. And as for the bad guys, Dragaunus' ship called the Raptor ended up busting its cloaking device, so oftentimes they're seen as random buildings or scenery in disguise, making it harder for the Ducks to even find them. So throughout the series, although Dragaunus' main priority is to repair the Raptor by finding resources like the beryllium crystals, his other agendas involve destroying the city with whatever he can get his hands on, like the Proteus chip from a rocket, a satellite to melt everyone, the DNA accelerator to transform humans into creatures, and the Celeranite crystal, just to name a few. As for the remainder 24 episodes of the show, well, that's about it. We don't really get much in-depth storytelling of any of the Ducks or any character development aside from the last episode, which picks up the story. Everything else is just entirely fillers of randomness. We do, however, get a flashback of Grin's past, who shares how he was once a duck with immense anger, but is enlightened by his sensei named Tyquack Do, a wise old duck who seems strict on the surface regarding the true ways to play hockey, but is actually pretty funny. Then there's also Duke, who states his reasoning for wearing an eye patch, and that's all cause he poked it himself during a sword fight. Unfortunately, this leaves everyone else's past unknown. Majority of the time, the Ducks are basically playing hockey, in which they're known as the biggest team in the league, and if emergency ever arises, in front of everyone in the audience, all they have to do is press their logos and they transform from their hockey gear into their proper armor attire. And because Phil was anxious to sign them, he didn't read the fine print of the contract, which basically allows the Ducks to build an underground headquarters called the Pond, in which it is equipped with a duck hotline and a giant computer, as well as their weapons and all their vehicles, which is often shown in 3D graphics like the Arrowwing, the Migrator, the Duck Cycles, the Duck Foil, the Turbowing/gliders, and their Puck Blaster/launcher, which shoots out hockey pucks. And speaking of the pond headquarters, it is located directly underneath the ice rink, which allows it to open up having the Arrowwing zoom out from the ramp. And not to mention, there's also a secret tunnel which goes to a billboard that rises so the Migrator can exit or enter. As for the villains, Dragaunus definitely started off pretty intimidating, as the first 2 episodes he kicked some ass. However, him along with the other 3 Saurians barely even make a difference and don't really show up as much, as they're overlooked by other villains, some being absolutely useless and others playing more of an important role like Dr. Droid, Astaroth, and Phineas P. Viper, who actually seem more threatening. But sadly, seeing how it's a Disney cartoon, you can guess right that the bad guys never win an episode. Not only do they totally jobber out Dragaunus, but he even makes Siege, Wrath, and Chameleon look like clumsy idiots by calling them incompetent and stupid. Aside from this, every other episode really has nothing to do with anything and contain unnecessary storylines involving giant electric monsters, intergalactic bounty hunters, dinosaurs, aliens from another planet, other aliens playing space hockey, or just simply goofing off. By the time you get near the end of the series, aside from the last episode, you do get one cool storyline involving Cleghorn, as he himself barely makes an appearance throughout the series. Since the beginning, he never really liked the Ducks and always tried to set them out to be the bad guys, but eventually, when he discovered the Ducks had an illegal base underground, he tried to find ways to shut them down until the Saurians infiltrated the pond. This led to both Cleghorn and Wildwing to work as a team. Then, as the last episode finally picks up from the first 2, it's been a year so far and the Ducks have accomplished absolutely nothing. When Dragaunus finally gets hands on the crystals to escape and using the dimensional gateway generator to bring more Saurians to attack Earth, as an interesting U-turn, it actually ends up being Cleghorn and Phil who really save the day. The Ducks eventually prevent Dragaunus from attacking Earth by shooting the raptor down, which lands in the ocean. Although not much else is shown what happens after, a question is asked if the Ducks will ever see them again, and Nosedive responds with a possible answer if they get a second season, and by the looks of it, we didn't. The final scene shows off the Ducks playing in the Western Conference Finals and end up winning the championship/Stanley Cup, thus giving the show to feel a bit underwhelmed. As much as the show completely threw me off guard as not being what I initially expected it to be, I will give them credit for where the story lacks, as the humor, comedic one-liners, and tons of action makes up for it, to a slight extent of course. For example, you get a scenario where Nosedive starts to break the fourth wall by talking to the actual viewer and mentioning it's a cartoon, and how they've wasted time from saving the world due to a commercial. I really wish Kennard somehow showed up or had more flashbacks, but unfortunately after those 2 first episodes you never see him again, and the show doesn't really discuss Puckworld, any other origins, or even tries to move the story forward, leaving the random villains and weak plots involving the Saurians to be desired. Aside from this, the concept was an okay attempt to create a cartoon but failed to attract an audience. This show is somewhat entertaining to say the least. The action is pretty consistent and the characters are each designed to be unique from one another, with each episode title or plot being somewhat of a parody of other existing films and kid-friendly dialogues. It's definitely a series to watch if you're just killing time and want to sit back and relax to a show that really has no progression. Although it was a clever idea to make superheroes from a real-life Disney movie, which is considered a pretty successful franchise in terms of being one of those 90s most classic sports movies, they easily could have utilized this to create some better storylines, but unfortunately fall short with its potential. Therefore, Mighty Ducks the Animated Series gets a C+/B-. Thanks for watching, give a like and subscribe for more animated series reviews, and stay tuned for the next episode.